Grizzlies fans know it's the team that gives you the edge. Big River Steel does too. And much like the Grizzlies have recruited legendary talent, we want you to be part of our team. Are you ready to be part of something legendary? Then visit www.bigriversteel.com. That's www.bigriversteel.com.
Look at the score. Look at the score. He does this.
Hey, but look at the bench, though.
Look at number 3.
Right before I walked in the locker room, Danny Ainge pulled me to the side and said, "Hey, Tony Allen, come here. Let me give you a little basketball etiquette. When you're down 40, do not do an in-game windmill. It's just disgusting for the game."
The Chris Vernon Show, presented by Caesars Sportsbook, live weekdays at noon on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
There's no substitute for experience, the knowledge gained from having been there before, and the passion to share what you know to make everyone around you better. It's true in basketball. It's true in banking. Grizzlies Checking from Pinnacle. Play hard. Bank easy. Open a Grizzlies checking account with at least $100 and a recurring direct deposit by August 31st, and you could receive a $200 direct deposit bonus into your account. Details at grizzliesbanking.com. Member FDIC.
We have another edition. This will be the third edition of the Debate Club. You guys are going to sell a shoe to Mr. Bennett Doyle, our producer over here.
Oh, yeah.
I saw these.
I've seen these.
I saw these on social media too.
It's the perfect house shoe.
I know, right?
Like, yeah, it's not even a house shoe. I bet you they're really comfortable. You know, you heard of unisex. This is unifoot.
Oh my God.
The Sneak Fest Show, live Tuesdays at 2 p.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
It's time for Grizz Beat, a full court press of highlights, insights, news, and scoops covering the Grizzlies and the NBA. Catch up each week on the latest Grizz buzz with regional and national insiders locked in on our squad. Running point from Grind City Media Studios, our host, Jarvis Greer.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? I'm not running point. Jarvis is not running point today, but he will join us on another edition of Grizz Beat. I'm sort of coming off the bench. I'm Michael Wallace, Grind City Media Senior Editor. I'm the backup point guard to this show right here. Jarvis Greer will be joining us from a very, very, very special location with his family. I tried to give him the week off. He did not want the week off. He wanted to join the show. He's on the beach down there in that Destin-Fort Walton Beach area. And look at him flexing. That's a big-time flex right there, Jarvis, man. Hey, what do you have to say to the American people on this week's show of Grizz Beat before we get started?
Well, first of all, happy 4th of July, everyone. Let's hope we have a beautiful and safe 4th. We are down here on the coast enjoying it. We got the whole passel. We got grandmama, granddad, the other grandmom. We got all the kids, all the kids, and we are down here just flopping around in the water, but we're repping the Grizz all the time wherever we go. Having a great time down here. Inlet Beach, it's a beautiful spot off of 38, and a lot of people know what 38. Shoot, I didn't find out about 38. I was 60 years old. I ought to tell you something, but you know, hey, it's a great spot, and we are enjoying it down here. Trying to soak up some sun, sand, and surf, and enjoy a little time with the family.
Hey, we'll leave it to soaking up the sun here in Memphis because the heat index right now is 104 outside. At least you have an ocean breeze coming your way, man. We're going to try to suffer through this, what we're dealing with right now, but we're all blessed. We're all healthy, and we got a great, great show in Grizz Beat this week. Obviously, there's a lot going on. The Grizzlies are getting ready to open Summer League play. Summer League training camp is going on as we speak. NBA free agency is already in full gear. Deals are popping left and right. You see a lot going on across the league. We'll definitely get into that. We'll also journey back to last season's Summer League and tell you about and revisit one of the best stories to come out of last year's Summer League for the Memphis Grizzlies, and a guy that's on a regular NBA contract right now. So there is a path to prosperity and production for the Grizzlies coming from Summer League, and we expect to see that same trend continues this season when the Grizzlies go to Salt Lake City first and then Las Vegas after that. Before we introduce our panel for this week, give a shout out to Jalen Wallace downstairs in the director's booth down there getting things done. CJ Hurt is in the producer's chair over here with us as well too. So I got to give my brothers who are here every week, week in and week out, a special shout out as we head into this holiday season. And looking to my left right here, we're glad to have joining us this week Parker Fleming from the Grizzlies Substack. Anything you've seen statistically on any of these Grizzlies over the last 2 years, you've probably seen it from Parker and his phenomenal work as a researcher, as an analyst, just being able to curate and bring everything together on all things Grizzlies. Parker, thanks again for joining us this week on this show. Tell people where they can find your tremendous work.
Yeah, first off, Mike, thank you for having me. Thank you for the kind words. You can find all my work. You can go over to my X, Twitter account, whatever you want to call it, at Paca_Flocka. I post all my Substack work there, so it's subsackelitist.substack.com. Shout out to third string center legend Jake Sakalitis. But yeah, I'm excited to be on this show. I really appreciate it.
How tall was Sakalitis?
7'2".
Yeah. Last time we had a giant, right? Like
yeah.
Someone above that 7 feet.
Well, yeah, him and Hamed Adadi, another third string legend too.
So we've had at least 4 guys that were 7+. Mark was 7'1", officially listed at, right?
Right. And then
Sakalitis, the beat, 7'3", but now Edie is the biggest of them.
Yeah.
Edie at 7'4" is the biggest of all of them. And to Parker's left over there, my guy, our brother from another mother, he's on here every other week, it seems like. We love having him as part of what we do. He's the preeminent Grizzlies beat writer for the local coverage area when you talk about commercial appeal and what they've done in terms of coverage of this team for a long time. Ronald Tillery started the tradition when the Grizzlies first got here, passed it over, and now it is in the hands of DeMichael Cole, who does a phenomenal job week in and week out covering the Grizzlies. Welcome back again, DeMichael.
Man, always glad to be here. You know, it's that time of the year where, you know, in May we're relaxing a little bit, but we kind of teeing up the draft stuff, but it's full speed ahead. Like, it kind of feels like the season the last couple of weeks around here.
Yeah, and that's because, again, we went from combine heavy, pre-draft, draft heavy. You know, now it's Summer League right around the corner. As a matter of fact, this time a week from today, the Grizzlies will be wrapping up the Salt Lake City portion of the Summer League. So we got a lot coming into it. But first, we want to look back at a week that was in terms of the Grizzlies getting their draft picks in. And when you talk about the work that the Grizzlies did at the 2024 NBA draft, obviously they took a polarizing pick at number 9 with Zach Edey. We've all talked about, you know, what that pick means, how that pick came about. We're not going to go too far back and look at what the Grizzlies were targeting in it, but what they ended up with is a 2-time National College Player of the Year, the most decorated player in college basketball today. He was the 9th overall pick. Then at 39, they picked up Jalen Wells, a shooter, a swingman, who made his way this past year at Washington State. But before that, obviously he was at Division II Sonoma State, but a real sniper, a real wing guy that can do a lot of different things with the basketball. And at number 53, Zach Kleiman finally kept his streak going of making a draft day or draft week trade. This officially counts as a trade, right? They ended up with the 53rd overall pick, Cam Spencer, the guard out of Connecticut. Between Jalen Wells and Cam Spencer, the Grizzlies got 2 guys that shot 42+% from three-point range last season. And Jarvis, I'll start with you down there on the coast down there. That's long range right there to speak with. But when you talk about what the Grizzlies added, they needed size, they needed shooting. It looks like they checked off both boxes initially just in terms of a developmental stage and what they got from this 2024 draft class. What were your thoughts, initial thoughts on how this class turned out for the Grizzlies?
Well, I think they did great because, you know, okay, I'm a Grizzlies fan, but analytically looking at it, you had to have a big man, and they got the best big man that was left on the board. A lot of talk was about them trying to trade up and get Donovan Clingan, you know, the great center from Connecticut, 2-time national champion, but they went and got a guy who's 7'4", 299 pounds, the 2-time National Collegiate Player of the Year in Zach Edey. He is a monster inside by any measurable. As a matter of fact, his measurables during the NBA pre-draft camp were better than Kleiman's when you talk about the shuttle runs and leap and all of that other kind of stuff, things that NBA general managers do take to heart. And he put 37 points on Clingan in the championship game. Put 40 points on Tennessee in the Sweet 16. So this dude can play. They needed a big man. They got a big man in the draft without having to make some other move. And also they addressed the need of shooting, although it may be kind of down the road because these guys are rookies in Wells and Cam Spencer. But at least they showed that they could do it in college. I think that it's a good move again by Zach Kleiman. And coming up with that trade, he wanted to get Cam Spencer, a guy that will probably be on a two-way down the road, but he'll have a chance to prove himself and see if he can indeed shoot from the NBA three-point line as the season goes along.
And I think this was Zach Kleiman was answering DeMichael's question in the press conference the other day, Friday, when he said that the goal was to get either Cam Spencer or Jalen Wells, and they ended up with both of them.
Yeah.
And I want to ask this question to Parker here. Parker, when you talk about the shooting that this team needs, obviously it remains to be seen how much of a role Cam and Jalen will have on this team. But even if they're in your developmental pipeline, those are plus guys that you can have in your holster there. But how difficult will it be, and what have your numbers shown you when guys are great shooters in college? How does that translate to the NBA line?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, like you said, even if they're not going to be utilized now, I'm a firm believer that in today's NBA, to be a contender, you don't need quality or quantity of shooting. You need a quantity of quality shooting. And even if, whether it's in the next man up situation or if it's down in South Haven, I think getting guys like Jalen Wells and Cam Spencer will be good. And the thing that stands out to me about it translating is this wasn't just a one-off for either player. It wasn't one of those, they shot 32% last year. Now they shot 43% last year. They've had this track record. If you go back to Jalen Wells' JUCO numbers, he was shooting 44% from three at Sonoma State. Cam Spencer, in 4 of his 5 collegiate seasons, shot 43% or better from three. So the fact that it's one of those things, you have this track record of like, okay, this bodes well for their upside. Obviously, the three-point line, it's deeper, but you look at the indicators, their three-point percentage, free throw percentage, they had really good free throw numbers, touch around the rim, especially on the runners. But also, too, the thing that stood out to me is both of those guys are really good one-dribble knockdown shooters. And we've seen guys like Desmond Payne and Luke Kennard with the flyby stuff. That's boded well for them. And the fact that no matter what, whether it's one dribble, two dribble, off the catch, they have a consistent rhythm that works for them. And for me, that bodes well for their NBA transition from great to elite college shooters to great NBA three-point shooters.
And that's one of the things that, obviously you want to have that transition. And these guys, and I know DeMichael, a big thing with you is fit. You know what I mean? If I follow your coverage, and I know you after these years, you're always talking about how guys will fit and what kind of fit they can be.
Right.
These guys are 22, 24 years old. They're upperclassmen. They've been around the block a few times.
Yeah.
They're going to come into this team right in that same age range as some of the key players that are already in this rotation.
Yeah.
How key would that be specifically for Edey as he starts off, obviously in a more prominent role, but even for a guy like a Wells, and we'll see where Cam comes in.
Yeah, it's very important because when you talk about fit, there's so many different, angles to it. And again, I always say it's one of my favorite things about basketball as it is to other sports, because in the NBA, the 5 most talented players may not beat the 5 most cohesive players. Where if you tell me, give me an NFL team with the best offensive tackles and the best defensive linemen, they're going to destroy anyone. But in NBA, if you give me the best center, the best shooting guard, point guard, all that, I can probably think of a team that'll have 2 good 3-and-D guys, 2 great scorers, and a dominant big that can probably beat them because of the cohesiveness. So what the Grizzlies needed in this draft wasn't really all-stars that are going to be, the next. They don't need the next Dwight Howard. They don't need the next Mikal Bridges, or they don't need the next, Zebo, or whatever the case may be. They just need someone who's going to play complementary basketball to these guys. When you talk about Zach Edey, some people want to focus on the weaknesses, but his strengths are all things that the Grizzlies need to get better at. The screen setting, they miss it. And he is. I mean, you go back at his college numbers. Braden Smith was his point guard there at Purdue, and Braden Smith had so much space to operate with off of those Zach Edey screens. And talking to people back in West Lafayette, that's what they talk about a lot. Then there's another element to that when I think of the ability to take advantage of the mismatches. As much as I love Steven Adams' fit with the Grizzlies, I go back to that Golden State series in particular, and I remember Draymond Green starting at center for a couple of those games before Looney came in and closed the series out. Draymond Green was starting at center, and Golden State was switching everything. Steven Adams, I felt like should have had 20 every time they did that, at least. But I don't think you're going to do that with Zach Edey. You're not switching Steph Curry or at that time it was like Klay Thompson and those guys on to Edey and saying, we'll live with the results.
Yeah.
That's not happening no more. So his strengths kind of perfectly align with what the Grizzlies need from the bigs, and they have the capabilities to cover up some of his weaknesses. We'll have to see how that plays out. But with the stuff about him playing in space, okay, guess what? If a 6'3", 6'4" guard beats him off the dribble, Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to come flying from somewhere.
From the weak side.
Every other team, they might have a 6'7" guard that's going to try to come from the weak side, and that 6'4" guard can finish through that player or whatever. He ain't finishing through Jaren Jackson Jr. With regularity. So they have the capability to cover up some of his weaknesses. And then, of course, with the same guys, Parker just hit on it with Cam Spencer and Jalen Wells. What stood out to me, and I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit more in a second, is when they spoke at the draft introductions, there was an understanding of what their role is going to be from day one. And that's what stood out to me about Vince Williams last year. Vince Williams came straight out and said, I'm cool with doing the dirty work. I'm not trying to average 25 points and get triple doubles and all that. I'm cool with grabbing the rebounds and throwing it straight to Ja Morant. And Jalen Wells, it was like the last question I asked him about the shooting translating and everything like that. He was like, it was. I mean, he gave a very informed answer, one of the most informed answers I thought of the draft introduction. He was talking about Ja Morant needing guys to space the floor for him and potentially him being one of those guys. So he has that understanding already that my job isn't going to be everybody get out of my way. I'm about to go dribble, drive, create for others. No, I'm open if you need me. And if I'm not open, go do your thing.
We're not even trying to talk about these guys as coming in and being go-to guys, even in Summer League, right? Because this Summer League team, even though the roster hasn't been officially released yet, we already know G.G. Jackson is going to be on that Summer League team. We've already heard that Scottie Pippen Jr. is going to be on that Summer League team. So these are NBA experienced guys who will be able to help these younger guys or these newcomers develop in the right kind of roles. That's a great point that you made right there. And I think at his best, and we'll talk about this when we get to our question of the week, but Zach Edey at his best will give you a little bit of Steven Adams in terms of his screen setting and understanding of space. And he'll give you a little bit of Jonas Valanciunas in that you can throw it into him and he's comfortable catching it on the block, going to work either way. So I think that that's going to be important. And Jarvis, I'm going to come to you in just a second. But what I want to do is take you back to Friday, where these guys had their introductory press conference, and Zach Edey, and he came in Grind City Media Studios earlier today and talked about how much Memphis is already showing him some love and being on the streets and guys taking pictures of him and everything, but he's also still having that chip on his shoulder. And he talked about how that chip on his shoulder is going to motivate him going into this rookie season.
I don't know if I can choose my own nickname. I feel like that's up to y'all. Just being an underdog, it provides so much motivation. Like, people keep counting you out, people keep telling you this, people keep trying to tell you who you are. Like people know me. Like, it just adds fuel to the fire. Always, I don't pay attention to it anymore. I just let it fuel me. I let it go, and then you kind of see it come out on the basketball court.
Is going to come out on the basketball court. We saw it come out when he made the big-time jump from his sophomore year to his junior year, where he won the first National Player of the Year and then won it back-to-back years. He got to the Final Four in the championship game this last year, outplayed Klingon in the NCAA title game. So we know that chip is going to be there from day one. I already see it when he's walking around the building here. So I expect Zach Edey to come in motivated and super motivated. Speaking of Jalen Wells, this is a guy that's coming in from a Division II level, but he also made the jump, and he talks about how that jump motivated him to be ready to be in this NBA spot right now.
If he asked me when I was a freshman at Sonoma State, I'd be thinking I'm gearing up for my 4th year at Sonoma State right now. So I never doubted that I could be here, but honestly, just being in the seat right now is kind of surreal. But I know I put in the hard work, and I have the confidence to be here, so I'm ready for it.
Single team needs a scrappy fighter at that guard role, right? A guy that's going to dive on the floor for loose balls. We saw what Boston was able to do with Derek Wright. We've seen what some of these other teams are able to, Alvarado down in New Orleans. We need a bulldog at that combo guard spot that can do it. And Cam Spencer believes he's that kind of guy, but he talks about learning from the vets, which is going to be key getting ready for Summer League.
Same here. Super excited to learn from those guys. I think they've grown so quickly in this league. Having 4 or 5 years, they've really established themselves. So as any rookie should, I really want to learn from them and, see why they've had success so early on in their careers.
And what you're getting from all three of these guys as we bring Jarvis Greer back up from down there on the beach, what you're getting from all three of these guys is a winning mindset. Two of them have been to the national championship game. One of them is already an NCAA champion. And Jarvis, when you hear from these guys and what they're talking about, and I know you wanted to jump in on something we were talking about with Zach Edey. Don't give us too much Zach Edey yet, because our question of the week is going to deal directly with Zach Edey. But when you hear their feedback from the press conference, what stood out about what they said in their initial message to Grizzlies fans?
I thought the humility. They recognize that this is a great spot for them to be in, and they appreciate it, and they have a chance to show what they can do. You mentioned the fact that, you know, the numbers. Paca Flocka mentioned about Parker Fleming, mentioned the numbers, you know, that both Jalen and Cam Spencer are north of 40% three-point shooting. Well, that's what Desmond Bane was at TCU, but he's short-armed, and, you know, I don't know how that's going to. Desmond Bane's one of the best knockdown shooters in the league from beyond the arc. He is an assassin. And it seems like if any numbers can translate, it's that number from beyond the arc. When you look at their form when they shoot, when you look at how they take their shots and where they get their shots, they know how to do it. They know how to put it in the hole. And as you mentioned, having that bulldog mentality from Cam Spencer. He's not afraid to mix it up with anybody. Jalen Wells coming up from Division II, now in the NBA with a stop at Washington State. These guys, they've been through it. They have paid the dues, and I'm really looking forward to see what they do in Summer League to get their careers started with the Memphis Grizzlies, down there with the hustle and also with Memphis.
Absolutely. And Jarvis is on there rocking in the rocking chair. The sky is blue. You can see the water back there in the background, the vegetation below him. Man, we all wish we were you right now, Jarvis Greer. So keep doing what you're doing, man. And it's a beautiful scene right there, brother. From there, I want to get to the question of the week, though. And then we're going to come right back to Jarvis on this one because I want him to answer it first, and then we'll circle it here. The Grizz Beat question of the week is, what are the realistic expectations for Zach Edey during his rookie NBA season? Now, let's reset it. He's a lottery pick, right? Those guys aren't coming in to be slow developers, right? No. You know, this is a guy 7'4". He's been dominant in college the last couple of years. Clearly the best producer. Led the nation in scoring last year, second in rebounding. I mean, he's just a phenomenal producer of stats and production. So, Jarvis, what is realistic? I mean, because, again, he's not coming in to be the last thing we saw at the center position for the Grizzlies, which was Steven Adams or Jonas Valanciunas or Marc Gasol. He's coming in with a different level of expectation, but with an even higher level of production and resume. So what's realistic to expect from Zach Edey starting from day one?
Well, I think his scoring ability is like the cherry on top. It's something that, you know, you can get if you go to Jerry Snow Cones and get one of those finger foods. You know, that's, hey, wow, he can actually score. I think the deal with Zach Edey is something that's really going to help Memphis. You remember the last 2 years that the Grizzlies finished second in the West, they were top 5 in rebounding, and especially offensive rebounding. The Grizzlies fell off like a rock going to the bottom of the pool last season because everybody was injured. Now Edey comes in with the ability to get to the board, get the boards, get some tip-ins, get some good defensive rebounds and some quick outlets to Jam or whoever on the fast break for Memphis. Rebounding was what really killed the Grizzlies last year. That aspect of his game to help put Memphis back on the map in terms of the Western Conference, trying to get to that Western Conference Finals and beyond. That is my opinion.
All right, Paca Flocka, what do you see in terms of how his numbers may or may not translate? What is a realistic expectation for Zach Edey coming into this situation, even starting as early as Summer League next week?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that's tough because I think one thing that Zach Edey is kind of set from the get-go, dating back to his collegiate career in Purdue, don't set expectations. You're just going to shatter them. And, you know, I even saw ESPN's Jeremy Woo, said Edey was his pick for Rookie of the Year. And, it's one of those things, I think it's not out of the realm of possibilities he averages 10 and 10 next year because the rebounding is translatable. Even going into the NBA, he's going to be the biggest dude on the floor almost every single night. He has a very good understanding and timing for technique when to get offensive rebounds. And then just from there, just doing the dirty work, because that's what the Grizzlies really missed when Steven Adams went down, when they traded Xavier Tillman, when Brandon Clark got hurt. They missed that big man doing the dirty work. And with Zach Edey, John Morant has not had a pick-and-roll partner like him before because Edey can set those hard screens, but also, too, with his size, he also has a like the thing that everyone always talks about, like, oh, wingspan, height, weight when it comes to measurements. He had a 9'7" standing reach at the combine. He can get the ball from a very high point and finish rather easily, no matter how much coverage he's got. And from there, like, I just think that this is also just the perfect spot for him to just focus on his strengths, because his weaknesses are alleviated by playing next to Jaren Jackson Jr., playing in a defensive system that even with 34 players on the roster, they were still a top 10 defense. So I don't, like, if the Grizzlies, if everything cracks right and they're back to top 4 seed in the West, he's averaging a double-double, I could see him winning Rookie of the Year and establishing himself as a very good starting center rather early. Because, I mean, we've seen this production. We've seen him exceed expectations every single year. I don't see why he doesn't do it in his rookie year either.
And that's a great point. And DeMichael, before we get to yours, that also underscores the fact that the Grizzlies were an outlier in the lottery because they were a team that already had its core set, a proven veteran, playoff tested core set. So he's stepping in and not having to be a savior, is what we talked about before. But he's also stepping in alongside guys that 3 different guys can average 20 on this team. So 10 and 10 on a team that has 3 other 20-point scores.
Right.
I mean, the success that he can have individually is only emphasized by the success that the team is having as well, too. So I love the 10 and 10 because that's what I was thinking when we asked about that. That 10 and 10 it seems realistic.
And I think one thing that, Zach Kleiman mentioned it on Wednesday night after the first round is that Purdue could not afford him to get in foul trouble.
Right.
So he had to be conservative.
Yep.
Obviously, I think there's some stuff that he has to pick up on when being the anchor of an NBA defense. But what is his impact around the rim defensively going to look like now that he can afford to be aggressive? Because he's the 4th or 5th starter now.
Yeah.
If he gets in foul trouble, Jaren Jackson Jr. and Brandon Clark
You
are right
shift
there.
over.
Yeah.
And the word they like to use around here, functionality, optionality, right? Those words, they force us to go to the thesaurus. They create them, and it's like, oh, that makes sense. That word sounds familiar. What are realistic expectations, DeMichael, when you talk about Zach Edey and what's expected or what should be expected in year one?
It starts with that. I mean, the optionality that he gives you from the standpoint of, I'm not too far off, numbers-wise. We're right in the same ballpark in terms of, I think 11 and 9 is realistic. I think you start with the idea of him being a starter. I think he should, realistic expectations is him stepping into the starting lineup. But the way that looks for me is I don't see him playing a huge number of minutes as a rookie. I think there's a very realistic chance that Brandon Clark is your backup, and he's playing more minutes than Zach Edey over the course, minutes per game. But I think it's just going to be matchup dependent. He starts games and probably ends up playing 23, 24 minutes a game. We've seen it with rookie centers this year. Derek Lively, there were games with him with Dallas. He played 30-plus minutes because he was a great matchup. And then there were games you look up, he's playing 14 minutes. And Zach Edey, I think especially his rookie season, we'll see how he develops over the course of his career. But when you think of drop coverage, for example, right? Yeah, that's gonna make him great against certain teams. But then when you play those mid-range assassins, when you got to go against Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, when you got to go against Kawhi Leonard, when you got to go against Chris Paul when he's with the Spurs, and they're just getting to that same spot repeatedly. I think Brook Lopez, right? And Brook Lopez is graded out as one of the best defensive centers in the NBA the last 3-4 years. But if you look at the weaknesses, it's always those teams where they have those if you go back to that, even to the final series when he played Chris Paul and Devin Booker in the finals, the trump card for them was giving Bobby Portis more minutes. And the Suns not being able to take advantage and get to those mid-range spots as easily. So with Zach Edey, I see 23, 24 minutes as a realistic goal. Don't expect him to come in, play 28, 29 minutes. And I think within those minutes, 11 and 9 is very manageable because there are going to be matchups. There are going to be teams you play, you're like, oh, yeah, he's got to play 30-plus tonight. He is the difference maker. Then there's going to be nights it's like, might need to get Brandon Clark in there. We need somebody who's going to step up on some of those screens when those, you got the DeMar DeRozans in the league that are just going to feast on that mid-range spot when you play that type of coverage.
That's a great point. And before we go to break, I wanted to mention and double down on the drop coverage thing, right?
Yeah.
Because getting caught in switches defensively is supposedly his biggest weakness, right? Most vulnerable spot. But if you're going to be in drop coverage with a guy like Zach Edey, remember, drop coverage, he can determine how low he needs to go and drop coverage.
Right.
But the fact that he has that 9'4",
He can make up some
9'7"
ground.
standing reach,
Yeah.
he's going to still be able to contest. His contest range, his contest ratio is just different when you're that big. So he's still going to be able to get a handout on one end at the free throw line extended and still be able to have, be able to turn quickly and get anything bouncing off the rim, right? Reaching over top of guys. So I'm fascinated to see what Zach Edey is going to be. I think the canvas is blank when it comes to what he can be defensively. He just has to be in condition to do it. We're going to take a break because we got to be in condition to bring back the second block here where we get into free agency, including that of our very own Grizzlies free agent that's still out there on the market in Luke Kennard. So we have that and more on Grizz Beat when we return.
There's no substitute for experience, the knowledge gained from having been there before, and the passion to share what you know to make everyone around you better. It's true in basketball. It's true in banking. Grizzlies Checking from Pinnacle. Play hard. Bank easy.
Open a Grizzlies checking account with at least $100 and a recurring direct deposit by August 31st, and you could receive a $200 direct deposit bonus into your account. Details at grizzliesbanking.com. Member FDIC.
I think we have the college basketball title futures. UConn's number one.
I really like Houston. I'd have them winning it all, but you can't be giving Drake jerseys. What is wrong with you?
Maybe the Drake curse is stronger in college basketball.
How long has he been riding with Kentucky?
He wore an Alabama jersey and Saban retired.
The Odds Couple with Rob Fisher, Lang Whitaker, John Roser, and CJ Hurt live Thursdays at 2 p.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app. Hey Grizzlies fans, turn your stadium excitement into betting action at Southland Casino Hotel. As a proud sponsor of the Memphis Grizzlies, Southland brings you more gaming action than ever before. Step onto our massive casino floor stretching more than 2.5 football fields. Slot enthusiasts can enjoy more than 2,300 machines from penny slots to high limits and play the hottest games like Aristocrat, Dollar Storm, Cloverlink, and Lightning Cash. Table game aficionados can feel the thrill of the felt with 50 live table games. From three-card to blackjack match, we're ready to deal you in. Plus, don't miss stadium gaming for an interactive digital experience. And for high rollers, our high limit room is calling your name. Go big on 6 high limit blackjack tables or spin one of our 54 high stakes slot machines. Throw in 8 delicious dining options and a 300-room high-rise hotel, and there's plenty to keep you going. At Southland Casino Hotel, the gaming excitement never stops.
Must be 21 plus. Play responsibly. For help quitting, call 800-522-4700.
Set your sights on next season with the 24-25 Grizzlies MVP season ticket membership. See Ja, Jaren, Dez, and all your favorite Grizzlies host the NBA's biggest stars with access to the best seat locations and prices. Plus, receive exclusive MVP benefits, discounts, and invites to special events. For more information, call 901-888-HOOP, 901-888-HOOP, or visit grizzlies.com/season tickets. Welcome back to Grizz Beat. It's time to get into the NBA's free agency period. We're right here smack dab in the middle of it. And it starts. Let's start at home with where the Grizzlies right now have their own free agent who's out there yet to sign a deal. The expectations reportedly, according to ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski and everyone else who's within earshot and knows anything about Luke Kennard and the Grizzlies, is that the intent is for these two to get back together. We'll see if it happens. But Luke Kennard last season and in 23-24 averaged 11 points a game, 3.5 assists, 2.9 rebounds, one of the NBA's top three-point shooters at 45% from the three-point arc. And then further down in the pecking order there, Lamar Stevens, and I know that's Jarvis Greer's favorite Grizzly, one of his favorite Grizzlies of the guys that finished the season, Lamar Stevens, who came over in that trade from Boston, averaged 11.5 points, 5.5 rebounds in 19 games. He's sort of a back end of the roster rotation type potential free agent. I think he's going to end up catching on somewhere else. It could be a little bit of a roster crunch. With Luke Kennard, and I'm going to bring in Jarvis Greer here, but with Luke Kennard, if and when the Grizzlies do sign Luke Kennard, and the intention, according to Zach Kleiman, was that he still is a part of this mix, hopefully they have to get NBA business done. But if you sign Luke Kennard, or you agree to a deal with Luke Kennard in the coming days, that caps your roster in terms of 15 sort of NBA guaranteed contracts plus your 3 two-ways. So you're at your maximum unless you make a trade and deal some other guys, which is also still in play for the Memphis Grizzlies. But where we stand right now with the reported interest between both sides, Luke Kennard and the Memphis Grizzlies, Jarvis, how essential is it that this team have Luke Kennard on it when they open the season and open training camp in a couple of months from now?
I think it's a definite thing that you have to do to get Luke Kennard back on this team. Because what do they say most NBA teams need? Shooting, shooting, shooting. Who's a better shooter over the past 3-4 seasons than Luke Kennard? 45%. You kidding me? I think one thing that bodes well for Memphis is the fact that we've gone this long into free agency and there hadn't been any nibbles from any other team to pull Luke Kennard away from Memphis. Luke Kennard fits for Memphis. The thing that he does is the thing that the Grizzlies need. That's shoot, 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 and not be bashful about it. We talked about fit earlier. He's a perfect fit for this team. And you can put him on the floor with Desmond Bane and John Morant. You got 2 shooters on either wing. You can put him on. He played a little bit of backup point guard last year out of necessity, so he could handle that a little bit. And also, I just think the fact that he has not signed with anyone else at this point means that both sides, Luke Kennard's side and the Grizzlies side, are close to some sort of agreement in getting this deal done. And I think Luke wants to play on a championship level team, and whoever else might be coming after him might not be that. So I think that's a feather in the Grizzlies' cap, and I think I'm saying right now that we'll see Luke Kennard in a Grizzlies uniform on day one.
Well, the free agency period, negotiation period opened on Sunday. We're now at Wednesday as we speak right now, so that's almost 3-4 days in. And to me, it's not necessarily about need, because we know we need shooting. No, every team needs shooting. It's about number. And that $14.8 million that was on the books for Luke Kennard, and the team opted not to. They declined the option. It was a team option. They declined. It tells me that this is more about number and what number they can get to. And we've seen guys in Luke's position across the league agree to reported deals. The one that stands out to me is the one in Indiana, right, where Obi Toppin, who's a real specific bench player, but he signed 4 years for $60 million, $15 million a year, which is right at the number Luke was at anyway.
Right.
For this to work and for the Grizzlies to stay below that apron number, Luke would theoretically have to come in at a little bit lower than that. And there's no rush to sign a discount, right? You got to exhaust all your options league-wide before you do that. But Parker, I want to ask you, at a certain point, will the Grizzlies be better off waiting this out with Luke? Or is it hey, we're in a position where we drafted well to kind of protect ourselves. We have other emerging guys that can shoot threes as well. Are we okay if that doesn't work out?
I mean, it's one of those things that at the end of the day, and, whether it's, people bringing up the incubant guys on the roster or the other options that you can go after in free agency to replace Luke, I think we're misinterpreting the difference between a great shooter and an elite one with Luke Kennard. Because, Jarvis pointed out, he shot 45% from 3 last year. If you go back and to even like the start of this decade, he has shot 45% in the 2020s from 3-point range. No one else in the league has shot better than Luke Kennard in that time span. Obviously, you have shot volumes and stuff like that, but, I mean, he's an elite shooter, and when you're looking, what do you need next to John Morant? It's shooting. Like, when he's getting downhill, you send help, he's going to – and Ja's awesome at drive and kick. He's going to spray it out to Luke Kennard for a wide-open 3. We even talked about Zach Edey. One of the things I noticed at Purdue is when Zach Edey's rolling to the rim, you got to send help with a tag. Where's that tag coming from? It's coming from the weak side. What's that going to open up? A weak side shooter. Imagine if you're running a Ja Edey pick and roll and you have Luke Kennard on the opposite side. Like, that's how you elevate your half court offense.
That's checkmate. That's checkmate.
That is a check. That is a
checkmate.
basketball checkmate right there. And for this Grizzlies team, when Zach Kleiman, he talked about they want to build advantages. They want to create advantages. Luke Kennard is an advantage creator with his three-point shooting. And I think it's one of those things where also, too, the expansion of his game. You know, he showed if he gets run off the line, he can take a couple dribbles in. He's making that next swing with his passing. You know, he has his shortcomings, you know, defensively, and people do want him to shoot more. But at the end of the day, I feel like you have to get this done at some point. I know, and the thing is, the apron stuff is real. You can see it league-wide. It seems like so many teams have been quiet, and so many good players are still unsigned. Tyus Jones, DeMar DeRozan, Gary Trent Jr.,
Buddy Hield, another shooter. Yeah,
like a lot of good players haven't been signed. And a lot of good teams haven't done anything because of these apron rules. I know for the Grizzlies, if they're in that first apron, that $12.6 million trade exception that they created from the Steven Adams trade, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like they want to have those options, so they're trying to. I'm sure they're trying to just work things out on their roster so they can bring Luke at a good number that still gives him that flexibility.
That's a good point. And I know sometimes we can get in the weeds of all the CBA stuff, and it spins your mind.
Right.
Because I remember the first time I had to dive into it years ago as I started covering this league. I mean, I had to take basically a summer course in understanding the CBA. One thing you mentioned about the trade exception, chances are they probably wouldn't use the trade exception anyway because that puts them back over the apron.
Right.
If they have to use something to fill into that role, that becomes $12 million that they don't have accounted for right now that they will have to account for. But having said that, that's a great point because you want to still have roster options if you have to make A, B, and C moves to do that. Back to fit with you, DeMichael, because it starts with fit and it ends with fit.
For sure.
As we said, it's not about need because, again, this is a perfect roster for Luke Kennard to be on. It's about number. And we saw the Grizzlies, not everybody in the NBA valued Zach Edey at the 9th overall pick.
Right.
The Grizzlies did.
Right.
So regardless of wherever else he would have gone had he not been picked 9, the Grizzlies said, I'm going to invest this in him, right? That's almost kind of the same that they will have to look at, you know, Kennard at a certain point. There's a number there.
Yeah.
Is that number reasonable for what the role is? So you got to average the reason and the role. And when you have other guys that you developed and who are ready to step into those minutes, how much of a logjam is it there on that wing anyway?
It's a big log jam. And that's, you mentioned the word there, the wing. When you think of wings in today's NBA, you think of position versatility. A lot of these guys can play the 2 through the 4. Some can play the 2 and 3. One of the biggest disadvantages at this point to Luke Kennard is he's more of a one-position player. He's more of a 2. And he's not the only one. You just mentioned Gary Trent. That's probably one of the main reasons he's still unsigned.
Right.
Buddy Hield, same thing. These are shooting guards who historically have not played much point, have not played much small forward. And the NBA's game, so now, is the Grizzlies game. I mean, we see it a lot with these guys. They like guys to be able to play multiple positions. They want guys who can play the 2, the 3, the 4. We saw this season they put Luke Kennard on the ball a little bit more just to play more in that role. So that's kind of the disadvantage to it. But it all goes back to the shooting. The shooting is where he fits like a glove, right? Like the Grizzlies, I've been watching the Grizzlies pretty much all my life. And it's hard for me to remember a Grizzlies team that was really a good shooting team.
That had this much shooting, right.
And if you go back and you look at the numbers, they haven't been top 10 in the NBA in three-point shooting since 2006, 2007. That's the last time the Grizzlies were a top 10 three-point shooting team. But Luke Kennard, Desmond Bane, I really like Vince Williams' upside in the small sample size that we saw with him. I think Santi is due for positive. Yeah. Like Santi, y'all have seen him shoot the ball in practice, and just the way his shooting stroke looks like, he's going to shoot better than he's shot these last couple of years. I think when you factor all that in, they're going to be a better shooter. And Jaren. Exactly. But you need, Luke Kennard from that perspective. I think the only holdup in terms of the number, right, when you talk about the $14.8 million price tag, I understand not wanting to give him that number, of course, because of the apron rules and whatnot, but there's also the standpoint of you got Desmond Bane, who's one of the better emerging 2 guards in the NBA, and you got Luke Kennard behind him, who kind of is better as a one-position player. Now you got to put Desmond Bane at the 3 if you want to play them together, and then what does that mean for Vince Williams, Marcus Smart? So that's kind of where the imperfect fit is.
Yeah.
But when you talk about just the idea of throwing another shooter on the floor, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. When Luke Kennard's on the floor, not only does he shoot better, the entire team shoots better. The net rating numbers were good. We keep pointing to that Lakers series. I know a lot of people pointed out to me all the time, oh, Luke wasn't making a lot of shots when he plays against physical defense. He's not really shooting the ball at a high level. And some of that is true. But at the same time, go look at the team's numbers when he was on the floor. Yeah. And that's because they're not leaving him open. They're not saying, oh, that's the guy we can leave open. They're not doing it with Dez either. So I know Taylor Jenkins used to talk about it last season, having the idea of when Dez is out of the game, Luke Kennard is going to be in the game. Having one of those guys on the floor at all times. That's one reason why you want to keep Luke Kennard around.
And here's the thing, and we're going to go rapid fire through some of the other NBA transactions really quickly, and I want to get each one of your opinion on one of these topics here. But if you truly believe you're a championship contender with what you have now, going past the first apron is worth it.
I think so.
There is not a contender out there who's not in the apron. There's just not. You can't do it. It's the economics of the NBA is just completely different now. Do you have to be a second apron team? No, you don't have to be that. But based on where this team is right now, if paying Luke puts you a little bit over the apron, now it's not my money, right? It's not my money. But if that's what it's going to take to say, okay, we have the luxury of the best shooter to go along with everything else, and everyone stays healthy and we work out. If you end up in the Western Conference Finals, no one's going to say, oh, the Grizzlies are an apron team. They're going to be like, damn, the Grizzlies are in the Western Conference Finals, and it's their turn. They're the next team. And because guess what? Knocking on that door is Jaren Jackson Jr.'s extension. Right? And we see the economics, which goes back to this first contract right now. We just saw the richest contract in NBA history signed or agreed to with Jason Tatum. $314 million over his 5 years. I mean, you do the math. That's already, I mean, you divide it and you see exactly, $60 million a year plus that this guy's going to make. He didn't win Finals MVP. Brown won it. So now the Celtics went from having the highest paid contract last year with Brown to Tatum surpassing that this year. I remember 7 years ago, right in that building over there, Mike Conley signed the richest NBA contract at $153 million. We've already doubled that now, right?
That's crazy.
So, Jarvis, I want to go with you on this one, right? And then I'll circle around for the other guys with what comes up next. But Jason Tatum's contract at $314 million, we've already seen the Celtics say, hey, we might want to sell this franchise now and cash in while the going's good. When you see those kind of numbers, what comes to mind for you?
Baseball, the New York Yankees. I mean, they're throwing up Yankee money now, and also they've won a title. They've been in the East Finals, for what 3-4 seasons with Jason Tatum there. They've been in the finals, and they've done it. And so he gets the money, he gets the bag, he gets paid big bucks. So now I think what we're going to see is the Celtics. Are they satisfied? Now, it's a big market team, and they now have 18 championships, one more than the Lakers. They are one of the bell cows of the NBA. You're going to see, are they going to be saying, well, we've won a title. We're happy now. We're going to give this guy a whole lot of money, but now we're going to start shaving off on the margins. We're going to start cutting some guys around the margins. That's the only thing I can think of out of that. Hey, give him the money. He has been, one of the best players in the NBA on one of the biggest franchises in the NBA, one of the biggest markets, and now he's getting paid. And so, like you said, it's not my money, it's not the fans' money, but he's getting the bag. So more power to him. But I don't see the Celtics being on top more than another year or two paying out this kind of money.
Man, well they're already locked in. Tatum is locked in. Brown is locked in. When Tatum signs this reported deal, he'll be locked in. They just did Derek White a $100 million plus contract as well. Drew Holiday is back. Horford is going to take a pay cut and willing to come back on that team. Porzingis is already locked in. So they can ride this out for another couple seasons when it comes to that. And Tatum will have the richest contract in NBA history for 11 months until Luka comes up for his extension next year this time, and it's going to surpass that. DeMichael, next thing up, ESPN released this tweet, and it said the question was, which team did the best work right now when you look at who's the scariest, who upgraded the most so far? Clay's reportedly going to Dallas. We see Paul George reportedly agreeing to a deal with the Philadelphia 76ers. Chris Paul is going to mature that Spurs team, and Oklahoma City Thunder. Is it those four who did the most, or is there another team in there that you see did some work that you would say did the most so far?
No, I think those four are good teams to point out. Right now, I'm going to say the Philadelphia 76ers. Just from a fit standpoint, you can talk injuries and stuff with any team in the NBA. That's a question for anybody. And there's legitimacy to having that conversation with the Sixers, but it goes deeper than just getting Paul George. But it's the fact that he fits, alongside of Tyrese Maxey. He fits alongside of Joel Embiid, but then it's getting Kelly Oubre, another long-limbed defender. It's getting, Eric Gordon, another floor spacer as a shooter to put with those guys. It's getting Andre Drummond for when Joel Embiid, if he's playing 60 games next season, no sweat. You got Andre Drummond able to play 22 games as a starter. Like, that's a good backup big. That's better than having Paul Reed, as the backup center, as we saw at times with them this past season. So I like what they've done, not just going star hunting and getting Paul George, but the moves around the margins have been really better. OKC did some nice things as well. Alex Caruso, I like that move a little bit better. Isaiah Hartenstein, I like it, but it's like it doesn't move me personally as much, because when you're a journeyman around the league and you break out with one team, I think there's a little caution to be had there. And I think he's going to step into a role that's going to be suitable for his skill set and whatnot. But 3 years, 87. And you talk about the pay coming for Boston and these other teams. OKC, that price tag's coming for them in a minute.
It is, but they've done a remarkable job managing the salary cap and their assets.
To a T.
Because what they still have, believe it or not, even with Caruso and Hartenstein, they have cap space, and they haven't come up off of their picks yet. They still have picks capital and cap space. So they still are spending house money right now, and they can bolster that team even more, right? Man. The question is, do they have the roster spots? They're going to run out of roster spots before they run out of options. And Parker Fleming, I want to ask you about again, it's a melancholy time right now in Golden State, but you're also reading the hit pieces that are coming out in terms of how petty things got towards the end with Clay and the ownership and everything that went on there. But when you look at the Golden State Warriors, and the end of the dynasty that we've seen now with obviously Draymond Green, Steph Curry, and Klay Thompson. You look at all the accolades that they put up there, 13 years together, 4 NBA championships. They combined for 5 All-Star nods, 2-time All-NBA teams. They're all going to be Hall of Famers. They're all going to have their jerseys retired. But this team, to me, and I want to get your opinion on this team changed the way front offices construct everything from their front office staffs with analytics and metrics and nutrition and mental health and everything across the board to the product you see on the floor. Their design team recalibrated what we look at in terms of how an arena should be built. So they are responsible for what the modern NBA looks like today. What is your takeaway from Klay Thompson moving on and what that means for Golden State and their legacy?
Yeah, for one, with Golden State and their legacy, like, you talk about so many different dynamics and how they changed the game. Really, all that starts with Steph Curry, but also, too, just that David Lee injury that opened up Draymond Green to play, and just how they stylistically changed. Now, because of the Golden State Warriors, all 5 players on the floor have to be playmakers. All 5 players on the floor have to be more than specialists. They have to be able to attack the game in a variety of ways. You can't hide many players defensively because of teams like the Golden State Warriors. And, with Klay leaving, it's bittersweet. And obviously, the dynasty, they won that championship at 22, but, it hasn't felt the same since the late 2010s, before Kevin Durant came and after Kevin Durant came, because, you've had this drama, with Draymond and Poole, and then the Klay stuff that happened last year with the whole contract stuff. Like you said, we've seen the hit pieces. So now I'm very interested in what's ahead for them, because I think right now it's about making the most of Steph Curry, and I think a lot of that starts with either Mike Dunleavy making the moves and be like, all right, we're going to go get a Lauri Markkanen to complement Steph Curry, or it's Mike Dunleavy telling Steve Kerr, like, you got to trust these young guys, because that's what's going to elevate our ceiling. We saw him already do it with Kuminga and Podziemski. Can he start Trace Jackson-Davis at the 5 next to Draymond Green? Can he start actually playing Moses Moody, who I feel like everybody that covers or watches the NBA is like, why haven't they played Moses Moody much? That kind of, and then also too, nailing stuff around the margins. We saw they signed DeAnthony Melton and Kyle Anderson, guys that defense-first guys, but also guys.
I gotta say reportedly.
Reportedly,
just to keep.
Yes. Reportedly.
Yes.
They are reportedly going to Golden State. Buddy Hield reportedly going to Golden State. They brought in guys that fit around Steph, and everything now is about maximizing Steph because your goal and what you want to show other players that are wanting to be a part of your organization is we had our own Tim Duncan, our own Kobe Bryant, like a guy that stayed here, homegrown, and became a legend here and became one of the all-time greats here. And he stuck through thick and thin. You owe that to Steph Curry because of what he's done for you, your franchise, and for the game as a whole. And I'm very interested to see what that looks like for them going forward, whether that's, taking a gap year in sorts and trying to get a guy like Cooper Flagg or something, or going out and making an all-in move and getting a guy like Lauri Markkanen.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, listen, I thought Golden State Warriors, they got that cherry on top in 2022. They probably should have tore it down after that and got out a year ahead instead of a year too late. Because after 2022, they gave the contract to Poole. They gave the contract to Wiggins.
Control,
They gave the contract to Wiggins. And then before Bob Myers got out of there, they gave the contract to Draymond Green. And I think that set the tone for Klay to say, hey, there's not enough left. Somebody was going to be the odd man out. Now he's the odd man out. Golden State has a choice. They can either go the Lakers route with the end of Kobe Bryant's era and just keep paying Steph Curry and have him as an ambassador in the transitionary period, or they could say, let me strip down everything else and try to maximize what we can do in terms of competitiveness around that team and what they can do with Steph Curry there. We'll see. One last story before we go to break. One of my favorite stories of the NBA draft. Devin Carter, the Providence guard out of Providence, obviously became a lottery pick. His father, Anthony Carter, Grizzly assistant coach, was right there in the green room with the pink suit, with the pink stink gators. He had everything going on right there. So his son get his name called as an NBA lottery pick. And now Devin Carter's with the Sacramento Kings, ready to get his NBA career started. We'll see him in a matchup with the Grizzlies as well, too. So that's going to be a special time. He did a little snippet with the NBA, looking back on his relationship with his dad.
This is me as a little kid. I've seen this photo. I got it in my phone, too. It's actually one of my screensavers. That's my OG, man. We go a long way back. Yeah, my dad, he played in the NBA for 13 years. Now he's an assistant coach with the Grizzlies, so he's been around for a long time. Everything I know is from him. Early mornings, 5 a.m. or late at night, midnight, working out with him. I've always trusted him, and here we are today getting drafted. Definitely hugged my dad first. Had a little handshake we just made, so glad we didn't mess it up.
If you could say anything to that kid now, what would you say?
You're on the right track. Don't get caught up in the moment. Stay humble throughout everything. Put your head down, keep working hard, and you can be as good as you want to be.
Phenomenal story right there. When we come back, we'll give you the Grizzlies schedule next week in Salt Lake City and give you our final thoughts with a look back to last year's Summer League breakout performer when we come back to Grizz Beat.
The Grizz girls are no ordinary dance team. They're known across the NBA for setting the standard for world-class dance and entertainment. From hip-hop to jazz, the Grizz girls do it all. And they're looking for talented dancers with dynamic personalities to join the team. Do you have what it takes to join a premier NBA dance team and entertain Grizz Nation both on the court and in the community? Visit grizzlies.com/auditions now for more information and show us what you've got at open auditions Saturday, July 13th.
The Indiana Fever have to do something. You cannot let her get hit like this.
No.
Because it's not just you're allowing people to think this is okay. It's you're allowing her to think that you don't have her back.
Yes.
Like whatever you think of her on a personal level, she is wherever you're going. If you're a member of that franchise, wherever you're going, it's where she's taking you.
The Gary Parrish Show, live weekdays at 10 a.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
Now for a limited time, the new $1.99 crispy tender wraps are here at Sonic. Who could deny a crispy chicken tender with bold flavors like hickory barbecue and cheesy Baja? And we can't forget the crisp lettuce and melty cheese to make the perfect bite. Wrap yourself up with some TLC, tender, love, and chicken for only $1.99. Sonic $1.99 crispy tender wraps. Tax not included, limited time only at participating Sonic drive-ins.
What is going on? What is it? Which one? What color was it? Yeah, that's vomit. That's vomit. Yeah, that is the worst one. The vomit is the worst one. I'd like to remind everybody that this is her idea. She wanted to do this.
Tune in to the Jessica Benson Show with CJ Hurt live every weekday at 8 a.m. on YouTube at Grind City Media and the official Grind City Media app.
Don't miss a minute of the hot Grizz summer action live from both Utah and Salt Lake City and Las Vegas NBA Summer Leagues starting July 8th. That is Monday. Tune in to Grizzlies Summer League game broadcast presented by Pinnacle Financial Partners, featuring your Grizzlies and Grind City Media broadcast crews. I'll be part of them as well. Jarvis Greer is going to be on there with us as well. Plus, tune in 30 minutes prior to tip-off of each game for the Grizzlies Summer League live pregame show with live look-ins from Utah and Vegas. Download the official Grind City Media mobile app today in the Apple or Play Store and go Grizz. It's a lot going on next week. The team takes off on Sunday for Salt Lake City, where they will be there for 3 days. And when we look ahead to the Grizzlies schedule, here it is right there. Summer League, Salt Lake City Summer League tips off against the Utah Jazz, the hosts, on Monday at 8 p.m. Then on Tuesday, it's the Philadelphia 76ers at 6 p.m. These are local times here in Memphis. And they finish off Salt Lake City against Oklahoma City at 6 p.m. What's interesting about that Jazz game, the Grizzlies could be featuring a matchup between Zach Edey and Kenny Lofton Jr. And also, Walker Kessler is on Utah's Summer League roster. So Zach Edey can be, he can get a very, very, very good lesson in game one of what NBA physicality and things can look like from that standpoint. So it's going to be interesting to see the Grizzlies Summer League schedule. They take off from Salt Lake City after that game Wednesday. They head to Las Vegas. Then they have 4 more games. By the time you get that schedule, we'll have another show on Grizz Beat next Wednesday. So I'm looking forward to that as well, too. And one of the things that we wanted to do is talk about very quickly a look back to last year, 2023 Salt Lake City Summer League, where an emerging star was Vince Williams Jr. We saw him set the foundation in Summer League. He carried that into last season, earned a 4-year contract, and now he's knocking on the door to be a solid rotation piece for the Memphis Grizzlies. Let's look back at Vince Williams and what Salt Lake City Summer League did to propel him into his position today.
This is going to be an awesome opportunity for him. Rookie season, a little up and down when it came to, navigating a couple of injuries here. Not a lot of opportunities with the Grizzlies, but when he did get his opportunities with the hustle, really saw some growth in his aggressiveness, playing an efficient style, playing off the second side, playing off of going catches, having some good finishing opportunities, grow in those areas. And obviously his shot making is something that jumped out to us when he was coming out of college. Versatility as a playmaker on offense, versatility defensively, guarding on ball, guarding guys in pick and rolls, but especially guys coming off of screens. So we're going to challenge him here in Summer League to really showcase that. He's put a lot of work in the last couple of months since the season ended, really working on his playmaking package, ball handling abilities, but also just that confidence from that three-point line. And his health is the biggest thing. Now he's had an opportunity the last couple of months to be healthy, put in the work. Now he gets the 5-on-5 opportunity. Going to see him grow a lot on both sides of the floor.
Williams, he'll step into line.
Vince Williams Jr. to me was the most impressive player in Summer League, and while he didn't necessarily lead the team in scoring, and you look to Jake LaRavia and Kenneth Lofton Jr. for that, the fact that he really flashed his abilities as a 3-and-D player is really exciting for the Grizzlies. He shot 42% from deep, and the change in defensive activity when Vince Williams Jr. was on the floor was huge. And this is a guy who, yes, it's Summer League and wins and losses don't matter, but when Vince Williams Jr. was on the court, the Grizzlies won games for Summer League. So I call him the Summer League X Factor, and I think he had a lot of exciting things that flashed through.
Summer League X Factor, Vince Williams Jr. My vote for Summer League X Factor. This year's Vince Williams Jr. will be G.G. Jackson in the same kind of role, same kind of expectation, same kind of upside. I'm looking for big things from G.G. on this team, and we'll see what the roster looks like when it's officially announced. Jarvis, 30 seconds as we get out of here. What are you most looking forward to in this year's Summer League from the Memphis Grizzlies?
For the Memphis Grizzlies, Zach Edey's footwork down there on the block, his rebounding, offensive and defense, also his ability on the pick and roll. And I got to say, Devin and AC Carter put the funk and functionality with those suits, man. The no skirt, man, and the pink, man. That's awful. That's awful. I got to give it to him. That's
All right, when Jarvis comes back next week, he's going to be hosting Grizz Beat with no shirt and a blazer on, right? That's what we got to do. That's what we got to do.
Yeah.
Hey, Jarvis, safe travels, man. Happy holidays to you. And, man, we wish you were down. We were down there with you, but live it up on the beach with us, for us, and we'll see you in studio next week. Parker Fleming, what are you looking most forward to from the Memphis Grizzlies in 2024 NBA Summer League action?
I'm going to go with not the most popular answer, but I'm ready to see, like, just Cam Spencer's fiery competitiveness. I'm ready for him to just be an absolute dog, even in Summer League, just for him to just give it his all every time down the floor, both sides of the floor, hit big threes. I'm ready to see I'm ready for the Cam Spencer experience.
That experience is made for Summer League.
That's right.
Like the scrappy, up and down, frenetic nature of Summer League. It's going to be a lot of loose balls, a lot of 50-50 balls, and I can see him getting floor burns and jaw burns and everything else.
That's right.
Trying to show all the hustle that he can do to try to make a spot, keep a spot on this roster. Good point right there. I'm looking forward to that as well. And last but not least, Michael Cole from the Commercial Appeal. What are you looking most forward to from the Grizzlies in 2024 Summer League action?
Yeah, I don't think this one's going to be super popular either, but it'll make sense, I think. And I want to see Scottie Pippen Jr. run the show. I think everything else will fall in place with that, because if you look at the last two Summer Leagues, Grizzlies have thrown a lot of talent out there on the floor. But last year we saw, Zaire Williams playing on the ball a little bit more at the point guard, and it was rough looking at times. And the year before that, they didn't have, a point guard in Summer League when David Roddy, Jake LaRavia, and all those guys were rookie. Like, it just wasn't a lot of functional ball movement. Now you finally have a guy who we've seen even at the NBA level be decent at creating for himself and for his teammates. I want to see how now having that type of guy, he's going to make the game easier for Cam Spencer, and we can kind of get more of a realistic view of what these guys, how their skills translate over. Whereas the last couple years, we saw a lot of like David Roddy isolations and Jake LaRavia isolations. Then they come to the Grizzlies, and they're mostly just taking spot-up shots. So now I think with Scottie Pippen Jr. running the show, we're going to finally get a real look at everyone's skill set. And then having a point guard in Summer League is a big deal because it's a lot of chaos, it's a lot of madness. So having that controlled chaos, that guy who can control everything, I think that puts them in a good spot.
Scottie Pippen Jr. as the Summer League organizer. I've tried to organize this last hour of the show, and I don't think I did nowhere near the job that Jarvis Greer does week in and week out on Grizz Beat. For DeMichael Cole from the Commercial Appeal and Parker Fleming from the Grizz Substack. Jarvis Greer down there in there we go. They're trying to rush me out of here. Jarvis Greer down there on the coast. I'm Michael Wallace. Thanks for joining Grizz Beat this week. Look out for the Grizzlies Summer League roster coming up soon. And make sure you get our Grind City Media app so you can catch all the action in Grizzlies Summer League coming up starting Monday. That's it. Grizz Beat, roll the music. I'm out of here. For all of our guys, have a safe and happy holiday weekend, and we'll catch you next week on Grizz Beat.
That's game. Thanks for running with us for another episode of Grizz Beat. Join us each Wednesday at Grind City Media for all the latest insight and analysis on the Grizzlies.